Welcome into the Thunder basketball universe. We're recording this on Tuesday, March 18th. I'm kind of losing track of what day it is, to be honest with you, and that's because the Thunder, we just got back from a three-game road trip out east. If you can believe it, the last Eastern Conference road trip of the season, and now the Thunder has a really nice stretch of 2 games at home, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is, considering the stretch that the Thunder has had post-All-Star break. 14 games, and only 5 of those have been here inside of Paycom Center. It has been an absolute wild stretch.
I'm sure that if you follow Thunder basketball, you've heard me say this stat because I can't stop saying it, which is since the All-Star break, there was 25 days.
Yes.
Only 2 of those days were off nights at home for the Thunder, which meant OKC was either playing a home game or on the road for 23 out of the 25 days since the All-Star break. That is just a ridiculous schedule that is so challenging for these players who, they need rest and recuperation. They need, some to feel like a normal human being. We talked to Isaiah Joe last week about just how do you get to feel like you're a normal person. He said he spends what little time he has with his dog, and just some of those things during the course of an NBA season, when you have 8 games and 13 nights coming out of the All-Star break, are just really challenging.
And the Thunder did a fantastic job with all of that. Finished 12-2 over that stretch. They were dealing with injuries. They were dealing with different lineups. And so very impressive, and back-to-backs, travel, as we already laid out. So a very impressive stretch, and we have a lot to catch up on. So we have a pretty stacked podcast for you today. We're going to recap the Thunder's road trip out east, and then also we have some exciting new updates on the new Paycom Center with our VP, Dan Mahoney. That'll be a little bit later in the show, so be sure to stick around. Some really exciting stuff coming up. So first things first, let's get into our stats of the week. And I have one that I'm really excited about, but Nick has one that confuses me, so I'm going to start with him.
Okay, so the number that I've got for you is 27th. And normally we don't talk about the Thunder being
at
low
the bottom
in
of
ratings,
something,
but what do you think it is?
Let's see, 27th. I really don't even know what the Thunder would be bottom of the league in, other than maybe free throw attempts.
That's exactly right. Free throw attempts. So 27th in the NBA in free throw attempts.
Wow.
Actually 29th in free throw differential. But the reason I bring up the attempts is because it's in great juxtaposition to what the Thunder's actually been able to do here over this recent stretch. And really since the new year, which is surge in offensive rating. The Thunder had been at hanging in the top 10 in offensive rating for most of the season. They're now up to 4th, and they've been solidly the 4th best offense, if not higher, for this whole back half of the schedule, basically since the start of the new year. And it's really impressive how efficient they've been on the offensive end, getting to the rim, knocking down 3-pointers, and being able to manufacture some in the mid-range as well without the services of a high volume of free throw attempts. And so I think this just goes to show that once they have some of those nights where they're rewarded for the fact that they drive the second most in the NBA, and the majority of fouls come in the paint, they come on those driving plays. I think above 30% of all fouls come on, or free throws attempts come after drives. So that is nearly a third come on drives. And so once those start to kind of coalesce for the Thunder, you might see that number in terms of where they rank in free throws per game come up. And that offensive rating, well, that could start to press up into the top 3.
It's really, really impressive, and a great point, because this is what Coach Dagnall talks about when he says that Thunder plays with a great blend offensively, right? Not relying too heavily on one shot or another. And for the Thunder, getting into the teeth of the defense, having a paint-focused offense is very, very impressive for this group, because it just opens up so much, right? We see guys knock down threes. We also see guys get to the rim like SGA and guys like J-Dub, and those guys get downhill. And yet not being able to get to the free throw line consistently, or, higher than more teams in the NBA, given the fact that they're spending so much time in the paint, is a little confusing, but still massively impressive that the offense is still functioning the way that it is and ranks as high as it does so far in the NBA.
Yeah, there are some teams who are in the bottom 5 in the NBA in drives per game, but actually take more free throw attempts on drives than the Thunder do, who are second in drives per game. The other thing about that is the Thunder turns the ball over the least of any team in the NBA, and they turn the ball over the least on drives of anybody in the NBA in terms of percentage. Less than 4.5% of their drives end up as turnovers. So every time the Thunder, nearly every single time the Thunder is in the lane on those drives,
they're getting a shot off
or they're spraying out for a three. Either way, they're in the teeth of the defense and they're making a play. They're forcing the opponent to, have to make decisions there, and they're not coughing the ball up. So great opportunity basically from a process standpoint that the Thunder is getting to the places on the floor that they want to. They're not getting rewarded with the free throws right now, but the offense is still humming.
Very, very impressive stuff. And also great composure by a young group who might feel like they're not getting as many calls as they maybe should be, to continue just sticking with the process and doing what has made them successful up to this point, which is getting downhill and getting those opportunities at the rim. It's a really good stat, Nick. I was confused at first, but now I've been enlightened. Okay, my stat is a little interesting, and it's not exactly what you might think.
Okay.
The stat is 40%.
You
actually... I'll give you a hint. Do you want a hint?
Yeah, I would love a hint.
Okay, this might actually
I need as many hints as I can possibly get. Life, everything. Yeah.
We were on a text chain with the person who sent us this number recently.
Oh, no. Is Chris Josephson going to be mad at me that I'm not remembering this?
You knew it was Chris Josephson.
To be fair, our incredible stats guy, Chris Josephson.
Guru.
And I know you're listening because you always listen to us, and we really appreciate it when
you're the best, CJ.
Send us a little text and be like, that was a great note, or thanks for the shout out. So here's your official shout out for this episode. He sends us so many great things.
So many.
And I'm blanking right now on what the 40% number is. If I had to guess, that sounds like a 3-point percentage that the Thunder is like hitting here in recent stretches, but I don't know.
Probably, maybe. Yeah. But this is actually Milwaukee. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it.
You got it.
Because this is such a good stat. And
sorry, CJ. As soon as she said it, I remembered what you texted.
So the Thunder has played Milwaukee twice. Milwaukee in both of those games never shot above 40% from the field. Milwaukee this season has only shot below 40% from the field in 2 games.
And they were both
both against the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yeah.
Incredible defense. And also, mind you, the Milwaukee Bucks headlined by Giannis and Damian Lillard. I mean, great offensive players. And Giannis, an incredible, efficient guy when he gets downhill and gets to the rim.
Yeah, remarkable defensive performances. And even the game in Las Vegas, that was a defensive struggle. I believe the Thunder held the Bucks to 90-something points in that game, which, I mean, most times in this league, you hold a team to 90 points or 95 points, you're going to be just fine. And so the Thunder once again showed by allowing just 41 points in the first half in Milwaukee on the road on the second night of a back-to-back.
Giannis only had 7 points at halftime as well.
And only 4 shot attempts. I mean, that was probably the biggest storyline, was to hold Giannis Antetokounmpo to just 4 shot attempts and 7 points in the first half of that game. That is delivering the first punch on the road against a very physical team. It was really, really remarkable. We can kind of dig into why that happened.
Well, let's do it. Let's start, because this is a perfect segue. Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah.
I mean, he had the preliminary assignment on Giannis Antetokounmpo in that game. Great physicality, great activity, but also having Chet Holmgren behind him a little bit too. Coach Dagnall said post-game was a little bit of a helpful deterrent, because that second line of defense, you're not going to go very far. And so for Oklahoma City, and particularly for iHeart in that game, very, very impressive performance.
There's 2 things about this that I think are really massive factors as you look to the Thunder in the future here, which is how many centers in this league can guard Giannis Antetokounmpo and just hold up.
Right.
Nobody's going to keep him to under 20 points or something like that in a game, but how many guys can hold up physically and from an agility standpoint? You don't see many matchup opportunities for guys who are strong enough to deal with Antetokounmpo's, size and physicality, but also quick enough to deal with the lateral movement and the cutting and what he's able to do in transition. Isaiah Hartenstein showed he is a very rare type of center in this league to be able to handle that initial matchup, to just get his chest on him. There was a time where Giannis caught the ball on the block and tried to kind of go right through. I was just
about to point out that play. Shoulder into Isaiah's chest, and Isaiah didn't move.
He didn't move.
Didn't budge at all.
I mean, there's maybe only 2 or 3 players in the NBA who can have that combination of size, physicality, and quickness, lightness on their feet to be able to just stay with that. And then here's part 2.
Okay.
Having Chet Holmgren as the roamer on the backside, this is not the first point of attack big man that the Thunder is going to see this season. You think about a guy like Nikola Jokic, it's a very similar type of problem that Jokic presents, albeit very different in terms of the athleticism. But you have to have somebody strong on the initial, point of attack, but you need this roaming help with size and length and activity and agility. And so for every team in the NBA, there may be somebody that the Thunder feels like, okay, we can cheat off of them a little bit with Chet. Chet's so great and so nimble, he can get back out for a closeout if he needs to, but to have him close by to deflect passes, to deter shots down low, it is just this beautiful combination that those two guys can have.
You know what that reminds me of? It's kind of like, so you've got two sides to this defensive story here.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this a lot with the wings and the perimeter players. Lou Dort, exceptional on-ball point of attack defender. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, lurking in help side, roaming, ready to pick up those steals, ready to pick up blocks, ready to get into passing lanes. Alex Caruso, very similar, and also a great point of attack defender as well. And J-Dub also just kind of roaming in that free safety. And the same thing in this game in particular against the Bucks, where you have Isaiah Hartenstein as that awesome on-ball point of attack defender, handling the brunt force, the physicality. Yeah. And then Chet Holmgren can kind of do it his thing, like you're talking about, and be ready in that help side role. And it's just this really nice balance that the Thunder has, both when dealing with perimeter players, but also dealing with really, really strong front court players as well.
Yeah, I mean, in football terms, it's like having this great jam cornerback who's able to get the wide receiver off of his initial route, not allow him to get free, but then also a safety on the backside that's there to clean up anything that, over the top. And it's just a really cool marriage. And you're so clever to point out the way that is mirrored on the perimeter as well, with Lou Dort and Cason Wallace as some of those initial line of defense guys, with Caruso, J-Dub, Shea roaming on the backside. This is what Sam Presti talked about at the beginning of the season, of the compounding effect of high-level defensive players all across the court. There's not one guy that you can pick out as like, we're going to go attack that guy, in a one-on-one matchup or something like that.
Yeah, everyone can hold their own, and everyone takes a lot of pride on that end of the floor as well. And just since we're still on the topic of Isaiah, we would be remiss to not point out the fact that he had a career high in that game as well. He had 24 points in that game to go along with 12 rebounds. He also had 3 assists. I mean, incredible minutes for Isaiah. Not to mention, he was 11 of 15 from the field in that game. Incredible efficiency, and we saw him score in a kind of a multitude of ways. I mean, he caught a couple of lobs in that game from different players. He obviously finished at the rim really strong, put the ball on the deck a little bit. And then that floater has proven impossible to guard.
Yeah, and he's shot over 50% in the last 10 games. And so that level of consistency that we're seeing in terms of the efficiency on the floor, really vital for this team offensively. It's something he talked about after he came back from the broken hand early in the season. He said, I'm still kind of getting that feel back. And I know that those floaters are going to start going down for me at a higher rate. I know that we're going to start to, get a little bit more efficient on some of those shots. He actually is shooting really, really well on some of these looks from the mid-range and around the rim. 72% from 0 to 3 feet. And then from 3 to 10 feet, he's at 56%. And so that's like a really nice combination there. Obviously, the vast majority of his shots come from within 10 feet. Yeah. And so he's able to have that really nice efficiency right now.
It's also really cool to see him have really nice rhythm with his teammates as well, because obviously Isaiah's the one that's kind of at the nail. He's able to facilitate really well. He has displayed his IQ and his passing tenfold so far this season. But it was interesting in that Milwaukee game, Chet found him on a little back cut there. Like, he was cutting across the baseline and Chet hit him from the free throw line. And I just thought that was a really nice dynamic to kind of illustrate and highlight that those two are starting to build some really nice chemistry out there on the floor as well, given the fact that, Chet himself is working his way back into the fold, working his way back to where he feels like he should be physically and, performing out there. And so to see those two connect in that way, I thought was really interesting, kind of unlocked a new element to their game.
Something that we've talked about with Mark Daigneault, and I actually talked about with J-Dub, is the course of an 82-game season, and sometimes you have injuries, sometimes guys are out. the way the Thunder approaches it really keeps these guys mentally engaged in a way that sometimes teams can flatline over the course of an NBA season. It's just so hard to be mentally invigorated. But what Mark Daigneault and the coaching staff have done is they have provided opportunities for players to grow and develop and be in slightly different, I don't know if roles is necessarily the right way, but like situations and opportunities. Like we're seeing this with Cason Wallace right now, where he's getting a lot more on-ball creation opportunities, that kind of immediate secondary playmaker when teams are trapping Shea.
Yeah.
Shea said the other day, like, this is crucial experience. Like, he was like, I don't care if Cason turns the ball over. Like, he needs to get these reps right now, because this is a pitch that we're going to have to go to in the playoffs. Same thing with Chet Holmgren. If you see Chet Holmgren on a pin down, catching the ball at the elbow and making a play from there, that is a wrinkle that we did not see at all last season. Isaiah Joe said, I really don't think opposing teams want to defend Chet Holmgren moving off the ball, moving in space. And that's exactly right, because that is a slider that none of these teams have had to see before in the previous 60 games of this season. And so for the Thunder to be mentally invigorated at this time of year and be continuing to add to the menu is really, really cool as we head towards postseason play.
I mean, so many different pitches the Thunder can throw. And for those counting, yes, we have a football reference in here. We've got a baseball reference. We're talking basketball. We'll find a way to put like a soccer reference in here at some point.
This whole back and forth is like tennis. So here we go.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And I'm glad you brought up Cason, because let's talk about him. He has stepped into some extended minutes here for the Thunder, with Jalen Williams, J-Dub, being out with the injury that he sustained against the Nuggets. However, we have seen some awesome minutes from Cason Wallace, and awesome in terms of the confidence that he's playing with offensively, to your point, getting downhill. I mean, the way that he came out of the game against the Detroit Pistons, very, very impressive. So against the Boston Celtics, he had 14 points. Against the Pistons, he had 20. And then against Milwaukee, he had 9. And it was just this stretch for Cason, all the while a great defensive presence still for the Thunder. It's the reason he's out there on the floor. But he's starting to your point, be that really solid secondary playmaker. And for him, in his second season, to still be growing and have room to develop at this point in the season on a team that is this good, as young as he is, just says a lot about this team and how, and leaders like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to leave space for guys like Cason to thrive and grow.
Yeah, and there's just a level of feel as a human being that Cason Wallace clearly has, and so many of these Thunder players have, to recognize where they are sort of in the structure of what the team is right now as currently constituted, and a feel for, okay, here I need to press the envelope a little bit on my own development. Yeah. Not just for my own personal growth, but maybe what the team needs in these situations. For a 21-year-old to be able to recognize that is really, really special. And to do it without like overstepping or overextending himself into, parts of the game plan that are, above and beyond maybe what he's being asked to do or ready to do or what the team needs. That is like emotional intelligence to the highest degree. And it's so impressive to see this team be able to capture that and recognize that, hey, these guys are still continuing to develop as players over the course of their careers, and they need to for this sustainable success plan that the Thunder has. But they got to, they want to win today too, and they've got to play those roles to win today as well.
I just love the trust that Shai has shown in Cason as well over the course of this stretch while he's, been in the starting lineup and played these extended minutes. And it reminded me of something that Coach Daigneault said, which is, Cason, don't forget, he played every single game last season. Like, he was right there with Chet. They played every single game. They did not miss. So that means he's played a lot of minutes for a guy in his second year. He has played in a lot of big moments. He's played in big minutes in big games. Like, real minutes in big games. So he has all of these experiences that he's able to use to stack up to where he is right now. And so now, when you're in the fourth quarter against the Detroit Pistons on the road and your team needs a 3 and Shai attacks the paint and kicks it out to you, you're ready to knock it down. Yeah. And after the game, I love what he said to you, that Shai was just like, I was just tired.
Well, when you get
and leave it to Cason to be like, I got you. I'm going to knock this down.
When you're getting mauled 55 feet away from the basket and you're getting double teamed at half court, and, that can be tiring.
Yeah.
And that's what these other teams want to do to Shea.
Mm-hmm.
Shea said that he's had a lot of conversations with Mark Daigneault recently about all of the looks that are being thrown his way. I mean, when you get to a certain point in the NBA, and we've seen this here over the course of time in Oklahoma City with, Hall of Fame level players that have come through here, teams are not going to just let you come down and play man-to-man against you and just hope that you have an off night. They're going to say, like, they're going to junk up the game, and they're going to say, Shea, we are going to face guard you with 2 players, and we're going to try to see if everybody else on the team can beat us 4-on-3.
Yeah.
Well, like, that's going to happen in the playoffs too. And so Shea is kind of already calling a shot in a way and saying, like, Mark and I have talked about, this is not the last time that we're going to be seeing this stuff. So we really need to develop this now. We need to invest in this now so that all of these guys know how to play off of it when we see these types of looks. Because we've seen double team face guarding at midcourt and zone on the backside. We've seen double teaming and face guarding and like a line in one. I don't even know what you would do if it's like 3 defenders on the backside and one of them is man and the other 2 are zone. I mean, it's just it's kind of wild what we're seeing here.
And it's just a massive compliment to the fact that the Thunder is playing, to our original point for your stat of the week, the fact that the Thunder's offense has been humming and firing on all cylinders so well all season long. And this is the whole point of the Thunder trying to, build up as many pitches as they possibly can, because they know teams are going to be throwing some wild, wacky stuff at them to try to slow them down, as we've seen already with how teams have been guarding Shea. And let me just add, Shea had 48 points against the Detroit Pistons. It's so impressive to me that all of this stuff, I mean, the physicality, the schemes, the tactics, all of that, and Shea is still just so locked in to just problem solving in real time. I mean, like, it's one thing to watch film and try to game plan 48 hours in advance. It's another thing to come down the court, dribbling the basketball live, and a team is throwing an entirely new look at you, and you have to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah, but that just, again, speaks to Shea's greatness, not as just a player, but as a teammate. And, he has gone on and on. I cannot believe the quote that he gave to us the other night when he said, my teammates, like, what they do, they spoil me. Yeah. And culturally, there's been, over the last, however many years, a bit of a shift in the NBA where, some of these superstar guys are looking around and saying, like, I need more help, or, like, what are these guys going to do to help me? And Shea takes such an honorable opposite tact. Yeah. And he says, look at what all of these guys do for me. Look at what all these guys sacrifice. I know, for me, Shea speaking, me personally, I know what opportunities I'm going to get on the floor every single night. I know I'm going to get a bunch of shots. I know I'm going to have the ball in my hand a ton. These guys, they have no idea what's coming at them night in and night out, but they sacrifice and they do it with a smile and they do whatever's necessary.
And they're ready.
Team, and they're ready to do it. And for Shea to have the empathy to recognize that, that's why these guys run through a brick wall to do that, to help set him up to be the best version that he can be as well.
Oh, it was such an amazing quote after the game. And I remember it because I asked him about Kaysen Wallace and just like the confidence that he's seen in Kaysen recently. And he was just like, it's amazing to see, because Kaysen has all the tools to be an amazing player, to potentially be an all-star. And like, he is growing, he's developing, and you kind of worry, like we talked about, you kind of worry with a guy like that being on a team with a lot of great players. You worry if he's going to be able to develop at the rate that he should be able to. And he is.
Right.
And
They're
it's
still finding
so
ways
encouraging.
To do that. Yeah.
Still finding ways to do that. And so Shea is so happy to see a guy like Kaysen Wallace in his second year thriving and getting better and obviously contributing to wins. It's just the relationship with all of these guys is so strong, and getting all of them back healthy will be wonderful. But the fact that they've been able to adapt and succeed the way that they have with as many moving pieces as they've dealt with injuries and guys in and out of the lineup, has been very encouraging.
Yeah, and then when it comes down to crunch time, Shea is fresher, and the defense is more spread out and worrying about more things, so that when it comes down to crunch time, Shea can either get off the ball if that's what the defense is telling him to do, or if they're going to let him play in space, Well, he can obviously go do that. We saw that in Detroit. He had those 3 straight possessions. He gets the step back 3.
Yeah.
Then, they isolate him again with Tim Hardaway Jr. He attacks him, gets to that mid-range jump shot after just dicing him up. And then they put Malik Beasley on him for a possession, and he's able to get all the way through to the rim, score with a lefty layup through traffic and contact. And those were, that was MVP sequence right there of like, it's clutch time. We gotta score here. If they're not going to double team me, I'm going to go and I'm going to take advantage of these matchups.
Yeah. And last quick note here before we move on, because we could talk about Shea for 3 straight hours, truly. His defensive effort that he is consistently giving as well is something. I was on the radio with Matt Pinto the other night, and I brought this up. Just the fact that you have a guy who is playing 38 minutes a game.
Yeah.
He is the leader in scoring in the NBA, and still not taking a single one of those 38 minutes off by, mailing it in on the defensive end of the floor.
You never see him loaf.
Completely locked in and contributing to the number 1 defense in the NBA. So you have to be competing at a very high level in order to do that every single night for 38 minutes a game.
Yeah, and that is part of the secret sauce of the Thunder is they have 2-way players at every single position. Mm-hmm. Every guy is not just a capable defender, but a plus defender. Every guy is pass, shoot, dribble, play make. Everybody can do all the things that are necessary to be a good basketball player.
Yep.
And so you can't pick on anybody on either side of the floor. You can't help off. You can't sag. You can't, just go at a guy and try to bait switches. It's the reason why the Thunder has the record that they have. And I know that we're going to hit some milestones here in a second. And, this record of 56-12 is like, this is what happens when you have a 10, 11, 12 guys that are great players on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. Great segue, Nick, because this was the next point, was the fact that the Thunder, over the course of this road trip, hit some pretty impressive milestones. So the Thunder won all 3 of these games. With that win against the Milwaukee Bucks, the Thunder have reached 27 road wins this season. That is a new Thunder record. But then also during this road trip, they picked up their 55th win, which marks the 7th time that the Thunder has had a 55-win equivalent season, and that is tied for the most with the San Antonio Spurs since 2010-2011.
Yeah, and they also clinched a playoff spot.
Sure
and
did.
So they're right up there since 2009 with the most playoff appearances in the NBA during that span. And so, again, we talk about consistent, sustained success over the course of time in Oklahoma City. They were only out of postseason play for 2 seasons and then right back in with the play-in and then playoffs last year. That is way shorter than most timelines that it takes to, kind of build up a team. And, when you're out of playoff contention, out of the playoffs, then to build back up, the Thunder did it extremely rapidly in about half the time that it normally takes to get back to back-to-back postseason appearances.
Such impressive stuff from the Thunder, and just the sustained success over the course of this organization's tenure here in Oklahoma City has been so fun and so impressive. All right, that brings us back to Oklahoma City and back here today, because we've got some really exciting news.
Yes.
While we were on the road, we did pick up some new updates. The effort to build the new Paycom Center took a couple of big steps forward, we learned. And so our Vice President, Dan Mahoney, sat down with a couple of representatives from the new construction companies that were hired to build the new Paycom Center. The name is Flintco and Mortensen. Here's Dan Mahoney in that interview.
Well, thank you, Paris. It is indeed a big step forward for this project for the new Paycom Center in downtown Oklahoma City. It's the hiring of the construction team. And we are thrilled on the Thunder Basketball Universe to have with us today 2 gentlemen who represent the 2 companies that will join together to build this terrific facility, the new Paycom Center. We have Kirk Mammon, who is the VP and area manager for Flintco, based here in Oklahoma. And then we have Kevin Dallagher, who's the VP of operations for Mortensen, based in Minneapolis, but have done projects, particularly in the sports and entertainment field, all over the country. So I want to kind of talk to both of you about, to kind of go through your companies, your history, your projects. Kirk, we'll start with you. Flintco, a longtime Oklahoma construction firm. Tell us a little more about it.
Sure. So first of all, thank you for having the opportunity to discuss this today. Very excited about the future of Oklahoma City and what this project presents. So Flintco was founded in 1908. It wasn't called Flintco originally, but the founder, Charles Flint, and a partner started in 1908, so right around statehood. I always kind of find that interesting. How do you navigate Great Depressions and World Wars and stay a business? And so it was through diversity. It was through a lumber yard, some other things in construction, and the oil days, taking advantage of the oil boom. And then in the mid-'80s, 1985, Oklahoma City opened their office. And since then, we've been fortunate to be part of some very iconic projects that shaped the course of the city. So the original arena was a project I was privileged to be part of and manage years ago. The Devon Tower back then in 2012 was worth about almost the same amount as this particular project value is. We put the dome on the Capitol, did the first American Museum here across the river, done several projects at the University of Oklahoma at the football stadium. We're currently working on the Coliseum for the MAPS project at the fairgrounds. I was also involved in the Skirvin Hotel. You and I were talking about that earlier. We crossed paths back then. One of my most enjoyable projects, and we're in the middle. Well, we've just started a small portion of the county jail project, which is a very sizable project that will hopefully build some more momentum later this year. And then as a company, just one other project to mention in our Memphis office, we're doing a job similar in size, about $800 million for St. Jude.
Great. Kevin, from Mortenson's standpoint, tell us a little more about your company.
Yeah, Mortenson is a family-owned business founded by M.A. Mortenson in 1954. We're headquartered in Minneapolis, and we have 12 regional offices throughout the country. In addition to our regional commercial offices, we have a large presence in the solar industry, wind industry, data center market, and of course the sports market where we perform projects throughout the country. In 2024, we put about $6.7 billion of work into place. We have about 7,200 team members across the country, and that number is fairly split between our supervisory staff, our project managers, engineers, and superintendents, and then our craft labor force, our carpenters, laborers, operators, electricians, et cetera. And I mention that because at our core, Mortenson is builders. We like to dig into the details. We like to get into the planning and scheduling. And we also offer a portfolio of integrated front-end services, strong design phase, estimating, supply chain development, and just kind of optimization of our customers' facilities. Understanding what the building is at the end helps us offer stronger services up front. Talk a little bit about the sports industry. Mortenson entered the sports market in the late 80s. We built Target Center in Minneapolis, home of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And our sports business continued to operate mainly kind of one project at a time. And the goal of we don't need to be the biggest, but we want to be the best sports builder in the nation. So we continued that way for a time period until we expanded our capabilities and were able to tackle 2, 3, 4 projects at a time. And so some more recent projects are Target Field, home of the Twins, and Truist Park, where the Atlanta Braves play, Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle. And if you ever get a chance to look at the build of that, roof first and building an arena underneath it, it's very unique. Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee, where the Milwaukee Bucks play. And then knowing that David Manica was on the project and was chosen as the architect here, we worked with David on Allegiant Stadium, home of the Las Vegas Raiders, and then Chase Center for the Golden State Warriors in San Francisco. And I said this in our interview, and I'll say it again. In 2018, we delivered Fiserv, and in 2021, the Bucks won the championship. 2019, we opened up Chase Center.
Going with this.
And 2022, the Warriors. Now, I think Oklahoma City has a good enough team to win a championship before this building opens, but we want to bring in one in the new building as well.
So you mentioned Chase and working with Manica. It's not the way on every project, obviously, but how does it help when you've worked with that architect before?
Yeah, really understanding, especially when you get involved in the design phase process early in the project, knowing where their design is going to go, knowing what might be what I'll call a gap in the documents right now that will be filled in later on. But when you're dealing with schematic drawings and design development drawings, not all the details are there yet. So having that ability to communicate with them, understanding what details are still to come, maybe where things are going to go. I think also that understanding of when you're proposing a value analysis idea or an idea that saves some money, you still have the vision of their design intent in your mind, and you're looking for something that's going to keep other areas of the project going, and making sure that you're building up the entire design intent while saving money at the same time.
Kirk, as the representative from the local partner here, how does it make Flintco feel to be involved in this project that truly is moving Oklahoma City forward?
Well, extremely humbled. It's just to be able to be part of and continue to see the growth of this city and the leadership, both for the city and the Thunder organization, and to be part of that. Being founded here, it's our home, and so having built the original arena and we just see this as an opportunity to continue that partnership, to grow that stronger within the stakeholders. But we also understand that any past track record that we may have with the city of Oklahoma City, for example, we worked with them for 20 plus years. Regardless of how those projects have gone, is going to matter very little if we can't continue that here. We understand that this is an extremely important project. There'll be a lot of eyes, and it'll be scrutinized heavily throughout the process. But we want to be able to ensure that that the vision that the stakeholders see right now is delivered, in fact, exactly like that.
People may wonder, why a joint venture? Why do we need two? How do you see and how in these sorts of arrangements, what's the delineation of who does what, how it all comes together?
Sure. I can go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say we're partners through and through. This is a 50-50 joint venture that Flintco and Mortensen have, and we interact in everything that we do. Number one, when we enter into a joint venture, we make sure that there's a strong cultural fit. And we make sure that there's a business reason to do the joint venture as well. And, looking strongly at Flintco, do they share our cultural values, do what's right? We before me ethos, inspire what's possible. Knowing that we had a 33-year relationship with Flintco dating back to the St. Louis Rams football stadium in 1992, it really was an easy choice to partner with Flintco, who shares that same culture, has strong estimating capabilities. They have that builder mentality like we do, and just an extremely strong local presence that will, help us build the project overall.
Yeah, just to echo what Kevin said, the choice to partner together was pretty obvious to us. The 33-plus year history together, having done sporting facilities together, an NBA facility in Memphis, made the decision very easy. But he said something key. That's the culture. Does the teams, despite the expertise, despite the relationships that we may have, is the culture going to fit? And I would say absolutely. So when you walk into a trailer, you come on the job site under construction, and you meet someone on our staff, you're going to leave there going, I don't know if they work for Flintco or Mortensen. I know that they work for this project and this community to build exactly what we need them to build. And I would tell you that we're all very strong personalities in this business. And so the egos are checked before you even get to the job site, because we're here to work together for a common purpose.
So let's talk about the process moving forward. Obviously, the Manica team working with TVS as the architect of record, they've been doing their work over the past few months. Kind of what happens now? How do you guys in this joint venture step in? Obviously, one of the things you're going to have to do is cost and price all the things that they're proposing. Kind of what happens from this point forward in this sort of transition between the design phase and now the construction phase? Kevin, we'll have you start there.
Yeah, well, the first step in bringing that design to life is, like you said, making sure it comes in on budget. So that process involves aligning the design intent with the budget throughout the design process. And to do that, we work with Manica and the design team, both at design milestones and kind of between those design milestones too. So to get into a little detail, Manica will produce a full set of documents at different stages. We refer to those as concept design, schematic design, design development, and then finally the construction documents. And those drawings go from simple sketches to a more detailed design through every step. And really, it's important in those early steps to understand the vision, the aesthetic, the design intent, because as sports construction experts, we're filling in those gaps in the drawings and understanding what will be completed as we go from that concept to schematic to full construction documents. So we're working to understand total tonnage of steel, the cubic yardage of the concrete, a full understanding of the enclosure system, how those impact the project. There's some things that we can do, and there's some things that we can't do. Of course, the building is going to have a certain number of toilets, and we can't necessarily control the number of toilets, but we can help understand where the bathrooms want to go and what is the best routing for the plumbing. Same thing with the electrical rooms or the data rooms. Where they go and how then the cables are routed to those rooms is important. Structural steel is a great example of working together with the design team. The structural engineer is, of course, going to design the building for what holds the live loads, the dead loads, the wind loads, but we can work with the design team to understand where the steel is coming from, what shape the steel is at, making sure that it can be easily sourced, and then the connections on the steel as well to ensure they're designed in an economical fashion. And steel is a good example of getting that bang for the buck. Nobody really cares if you use a W14 shape versus a W20 shape, but if you can use the dollars that you saved and use on that W14 shape into having higher end finishes in the clubs or suites, that's where you're really paying off in that design process.
How do you kind of work through the variation of costs, of materials, of steel, of everything else? A lot of things going on in our world right now that would influence that. How do you guard against basically what is a finite budget?
Right. No, great question. And it's a challenge today, different than COVID, but I think COVID taught us a lot as contractors and trade partners and how to manage these risks that you just wake up one day and go, the world's different today. And so with the tariffs, I think there's no like shock value there. We understand they're coming. We understand what those percentages are. And so we're going to be very on purpose about the contingencies that we create in these initial estimates. So we have a very large or a very important milestone next week, which is basically a conceptual estimate applied to the conceptual design that's been shared with us. And so that's the estimate that really provides all the stakeholders some assurance that, hey, we can move forward. We're going to be able to fit within this prescribed cost limit, if you will. And to get there, there's a couple of different ways. I mean, one is, like Kevin said, you're working early with that design firm that we're familiar with. We're looking at different systems and providing options as we go. And so does this structural system versus this structural system, which one seems to make sense? And you have to be mindful about time. And so I can get into that here in just a second, but what envelopes, what finished systems make more sense, and what's more readily available is another thing that we got to think about. And so as we're going through the budget, let's say perhaps we get to this conceptual next week and it delivers some good news. Well, I don't think our job's finished. In fact, it's far from it. We've got a design duration that's going to last all the way through the calendar year of 26. But I think we have already started the process with the design firm and with Icon to consider savings ideas already, to give us options and a menu, if you will, of what makes the most sense, what is sacred within this scope and what is not sacred, and then focusing in those areas.
So obviously, to begin the construction, the current building that's on that site, whether you want to call it Prairie Surf or the Myriad or the Cox Convention Center, whatever, it's got a 50-year history. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are nostalgic about it because it meant so much, but it also that site represents the future. So kind of talk through the process of watching the demolition. You all aren't doing the demolition. There'll be a separate demo contractor that the city hires. That'll be determined very soon. But kind of what will you be doing to watch as that building comes down as they prepare that site?
Sure. We talk about nostalgic. I'll have to tell myself here, well, I'm going to be one of those individuals. So my freshman and senior years of college at Oklahoma State University, I wrestled in that arena during the national tournament. Our team was successful enough my freshman year to win the thing. But it's you look at family and friends used to ask me, where does this need to be built? My first answer was just to the west across the street. There's a open parking lot there. Very little, very simple, right? Well, the city doesn't own that property. And so they own the Prairie Surf property. And that city block, when you look at it, is a much larger footprint than what they currently have. So it's going to give them more room and ability to create a facility that's only going to enhance that fan and patron experience. But we will work closely with whoever is selected as the demo contractor to coordinate several things that just need to be very carefully planned and a strategy around that, because we're going to want to come in there, honestly, after they get a certain distance across that site. Ideally, we're going to want to come in there as quickly as we can and start following them across that job site. And so that's how we've got to think about what are the priorities today for the design and the completeness of that design to help us bid certain things like structural steel. A steel mill order needs to be placed within this calendar year. Same thing for conveyance systems as well as the large electrical gear. And how you do that is just using our state statute language, Title 61. We will write and create the bid scopes. We will then have the bid form. We will then advertise that, and then within 20 days, we'll bid that publicly. And it's a very formal process. And as soon as the bids are received, after a certain cutoff time, then we'll share those results. And we'll publish those, recommend them to our client on who do we think is the best and lowest bid. So that will happen more than likely, if I look at a job of this size, probably in 4 to 5 different bid packages. So structure being the first one, mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems being the second one. Then you get into your envelope and your site work, and then your interiors, your finishes, and then lastly probably your furnishings and equipment.
Kevin, are there challenges building in an urban setting a little more a little tighter as opposed to out in the middle of a field somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that came to mind is I think it'll be interesting to understand where the utilities are coming into the project: sewer, water, electrical, et cetera. And, if it's anything like any other urban project we've done, there'll be some surprises along the way, like we didn't realize there was a sewer line there, or the electrical is fed in different location than we originally thought. So be very interesting to see that over time. From an urban environment, you're always looking at, where are people going to park when they're on the project. That's always can be a logistical challenge, although when you've got an 18,000 something seat arena at the end of the day, hopefully you can handle the 1,000 construction workers that are building the project. Other urban just-in-time deliveries, making sure that we have a clearly defined truck route as we're going through to deliver materials to the project. And we very much concentrate on just-in-time delivery, making sure that there is not an overabundance of materials on the project site as well. And then you're always looking out for other events that might happen in the area, making sure that the other buildings in the surrounding area aren't affected by vibration or dust, and making sure that, we're the best neighbors possible in everything that's going on from a day-to-day perspective.
As I told you guys, my former boss, Governor Keating, had a line where he liked to say Oklahoma's state bird should be the crane because it represents progress, represents growth. But in a construction site of this magnitude, it also represents opportunity for jobs and during the process. Kind of talk, Kirk, about what this will mean for all the subcontractors, for all the others that in the trades and everyone else that will participate in this.
Well, like Kevin said earlier, when you see a project, I'll give you an example. So within our organization, so there's this county jail project that we won a couple years ago. It's pretty sizable project. And then you have this one. And when I get phone calls from inside my organization saying I want to come to Oklahoma City and be on loan for a period of time, they're picking the arena. They're not wanting to come work on this other project. And so it's going to draw attention. People are sports fans just like we are, and they want to participate and be part of this. I will tell you, back when Devon was built, 2010 through 2012, it truly saturated our market within the subcontractor base, and it struggled. It struggled to work through that. But I think our city and our trade partners got smarter about that. They grew, and they didn't just grow for the sake of growing. They grew smart. And so we've been talking to several trades here in the market, just I guess at least a year and a half out for this pursuit, just asking them what's it look like on their backlog. What do you have that might compete with this job? What's your strategy if you were to go after this project? Are you looking at a local partner? Are you looking at a regional partner? And I believe we'll have significant local interest, but it's going to draw interest from the entire country, which is going to be very helpful. There's some specialty scopes that just need to come from places that's what they specialize in.
Kevin, as Mortensen has worked on some of these huge sports and entertainment venues, did you find the same thing? People kind of are drawn to.
Yeah, absolutely. When you are coming into a market and you're building a new arena or stadium, you're often looked at as the preferred project in town, and all eyes are on you. So there's definitely a advantage to coming in. Now I think things are changing a little bit in the market. There's a lot of big construction going on, and data center, for example, is a great example of projects that are really taking a lot of people and a lot of resources. But sports project, what we do is we really try to drum up interest for the project overall. Kind of what we're doing right now in working with Manica is understanding the logistics of the project, helping understand how we're going to lay out our bid packages, as Kirk talked about. So as we understand those logistics, one of the first things we do is hold informational meetings, talking about how we run projects. what is expected to work safely on our project, our expectations around quality, what trade partners can receive, when trade partners can receive the contract documents, the crane plan on the site, insurance requirements, work hours, everything that we can think of. And really what we want to do is we want to communicate a clear vision for the project and make sure that the trade partners understand how we're going to operate the project, how we're going to make sure that their workers are taken care of, how we're going to make sure that we're on schedule from day one. And so really, really building up the information and assurance that this is going to be a really, really well-run, safe project overall that benefits all the trade partners in the community.
That's great. So from a timing perspective, the demolition of the current building on that site, PeriSurf, will begin sometime in April, and then kind of spend the rest of the calendar year that coming down. I will let our fans know that the design of the new arena from the architect is probably going to be first made public sometime midsummer. So that's when folks will get the initial view of what this is going to look like, both inside and outside. And I think that'll be an exciting time. And then pretty much after the first of the year, starting in 26, that's when you guys get possession and start your work. How long will that take?
So the overall project lasts from February of 26, and our substantial completion date right now is June 2nd of 2028. So to kind of talk you through the construction of the project, what we're going to see is really in February 2026, we're going to start digging a hole. And usually where we start on a project is the loading dock area. The loading dock area is where trucks, et cetera, are going to go into the project at the end. So we might as well start there and kind of work our way around the loading dock area. So as we're doing that excavation, then in May of 2026, you're going to start to see foundations in place, whether that's deep foundations, pile caps, concrete footings, et cetera. But May 26, you'll start to see foundations wrap around one side of the building. And then kind of when we're out of our own way, we'll then wrap around the other side of the building and complete the foundations in a circular manner. In October of 2026, the steel is going to start. So the steel will start essentially the same place that we started the concrete. And again, have two headings on that steel so that we're wrapping around the building. In early 27, our precast stadia and our roof steel will start. That's really what we're working towards. When we start that steel, the whole goal is when can we get those trusses started and when can we get the precast started. And around that time, we're going to have two shifts going on. We'll construct the steel and the roof steel during the day, and then the precast at night. And then our entire goal at that point is to top the building out. So to put that last steel truss in and those last pieces of steel in place, that'll occur right around June of 2027. We try to start to enclose the building and put that roof on about mid-27. And what that really kicks off as well is us working everywhere in the building. You think about your typical office tower construction, you're going to work your way up and floor 1, floor 2, floor 3. What we do in arena and stadium construction is once we have an ability to work in an area, we're going to work in that area. And so when you think about kind of getting a roof on 1/3 of the building, that now opens up every floor in 1/3 of the building for us to all work on at the same time. And so, June 2027, that steel roof will top out. In November 2027, our building will be fully enclosed, and that's when you're really going to see activity happening on every single floor in the arena. It's a really exciting time. January 28, concrete playing floor should be poured out. Seats will start to be installed. And then, their whole goal is to start commission the building, turn on the mechanical and electrical systems. Somewhere around April, May, start hearing music in the bowl. And that's when it really gets rolling and people can see that finish line, all working towards completion in June 2nd of 2028.
So it's just all that simple, huh?
Yes, nothing to it. But to kind of just to really show appreciation, just the fact that we have these relationships and we know this type of construction and working with someone like Manica and their familiarity is you might say, well, if you're going to put steel up and precast in October, almost 9 to 10 months after you start construction, when do you need to get that going? Well, from day one, from awarding that work to a particular trade partner and going through the submittals that are required, going through the fabrication to meet that, we've got to be able to build part of the structure, as we go, which is going to be typically your poured in place concrete. And so it allows you to get structure going as you're waiting on the rest of the structure. And that's exactly what this project is going to need to meet the time frame.
Well, I know I speak for the Thunder organization and really all of Oklahoma City. And of course, Oklahoma City citizens are one ones who went to the polls and approved the funding for this. And we're very proud of what's ahead. Very proud to have you both on board as part of this process to bring this new Paycom Center to life. So thanks for joining us, and we appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Really exciting news, really exciting stuff happening with the construction of the new Paycom Center. A lot to look forward to here in Oklahoma City over the next few years.
Yeah, and I mean, Paycom Center, this whole area down here has been a gathering place for people to come and celebrate being a part of the Oklahoma City community. It's this area is become so rich and full of vibrancy. And so it's so exciting to hear about these next steps to continue to invest in this downtown area.
It's so cool to hear that. And Dan, thank you so much for that interview. As always, we appreciate it. All right, let's give you what's up next for the Thunder. If you can believe it, we're going to be home for 2 games, 2 whole games.
Soak it up, everybody.
The Thunder's going to play a couple of Eastern Conference teams here inside of Paycom Center. They've got the Philadelphia 76ers on Wednesday, and then they welcome in the Charlotte Hornets on Friday. So after the stretch that the Thunder has had over since post-All-Star break, as we've already laid out, it's only 2 games, but it feels really nice just to have several days here at home, sleeping in our own beds and playing in our home arena.
Yeah, and continues a stretch of now 5 straight games here against Eastern Conference teams. The Thunder has only lost 1 time all season to an Eastern Conference team, and that was at Cleveland.
Great game, too.
Yeah, unbelievable game, and you may have heard that Cleveland has an unbelievable record, just like the Thunder does. So for that to be the only loss so far against an Eastern Conference team is really, really impressive. The Thunder, has a chance here down the stretch to threaten the all-time record for a team record against another conference. So we'll see if that's able to come to fruition.
Very impressive. I mean, we've got 2 games right here at home against Eastern Conference teams. So definitely keep an eye out for that. But that wraps up today's podcast. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much to our producer, Matt Bishop. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.